episode of Speakeasy. Today, we are going to go over the back half of the debate, as well as its speeches, and explain what constitutes a legitimate extension. First, let's start with member speeches. Member is basically the same as PM or LO speeches, but without model power. A quick reminder here that you are still not allowed to model as member of Gov even if your opening does not provide the best model they could have. You're also not allowed to challenge the PM's model if you're a member of Op, even if your opening fucked up by not doing so. You do, however, want to explain your framing, as well as your reign and lamb, which we discussed in episode 5. The difference in member speeches is that you want to actively compare your benefits with those of your own opening. You want to consider what the disadvantages are based on the complete read you now have of the debate. This is a massive advantage because you don't have to guess what you're giving up. Everyone else already told you. Now, ideally, the member already explains why the new material they're presenting is more important than what their own opening team said, as well as why they come over the other team in top half. Say you're a member of Gov. You could say something like, our opening proves that they get benefit A. Opening opposition claims they gain benefit B. We, in closing government, will prove benefit C, which is more important than benefit A from opening government because of reasons 1, 2, and 3, and is worth giving up benefit B from opening opposition because reasons 1, 2, and 3. This kind of clarity immediately tells the judge why what you're proving matters and why they should listen to you. Let's move over to whip speeches now, which is my favorite position to speak in BP. Whip is a very interesting position with a lot of interesting and unique rules attached to it. First and foremost, a whip speaker's job is to explain why their partner won the debate. Think of it like being a part of the panel, but explaining why your team should take the first in a really biased manner. Note that whips are not allowed to present new arguments that are not present in the member speech. It would be unfair for a team to be able to bring in an entirely new case in the last minute of the debate that literally no one in the room could respond to. What whips are allowed to bring in, though, is new mechanisms, examples, and other pieces of analysis and logic to close logical links left open by their member. If whips were not allowed to do this, government whip would be helpless in the face of rebuttal from closing opposition's member's speech, as a rule preventing them from filling in logical gaps would also prevent them from rebuilding their team's argument. Additionally, whips are also allowed to bring in new rebuttal. Those of you that have been paying close attention to previous episodes might think that whips being allowed to bring in new rebuttal is contradictory to me saying that rebuttal is no different from other arguments in episode 3. First of all, good job on listening so carefully. Your callout is correct. But, unlike new constructive material, rebuttal, by its very nature, refers to an argument or piece of analysis that is already present in the debate. Opposing teams should expect that you will respond to their material and are expected to deal with rebuttals preemptively. This, by the way, is also the rule of thumb as to whether what the whip is saying is legal in general. If what they're talking about came up in the debate before, say, their member's speech, it's fine for them to expand on. If it's entirely new, it's not. Note that you might want to be clear what you're doing is rebuttal. If the judges view what you're saying as you adding new constructive material for the sake of new material, chances are they'll disregard it. Next, if you are listening to this podcast, I expect to never hear you utter the words, "It's too late to explain this in the whip." If you say this, you're wrong, and it makes you sound incompetent and stupid because it tells everyone that you haven't read the rules of the game. Whips are very much allowed to further explain material already present in their partner's speech. If you want, you can verify this on page 43 of the WUDC Korea Debating Manual, which, by the way, you can find the link to on our website, speakeasydebating.wordpress.com, where we've just added a resources page. Next, comparing against your top half does not mean you should rebut them. In fact, as mentioned in our episode on rebuttal, you're not allowed to refute your own side, and good judges won't count your rebuttal against them. What you can do if you have to weaken your opening team is one of three things. 1. You use rebuttal the other side used against your opening to explain why their case is lacking and you're fixing it, or why their outcome is symmetrical given those responses. Or 2. Invent rebuttal they could have made in order to explain why your partner's analysis is more rigorous than theirs was. You can be a bit funny here and say, while of course we would never disagree with our opening and totally think they did a fabulous job, there is some fairness in what the opposition said in response to their points. Something along those lines. Or 3, why, independently of their engagement with the other teams, you provide the most important impact. Kinda like you saying, yeah, we think our opening brought up an important impact, but here's why the impact we give you is importanter. Finally, because the whip speaker cannot bring entirely new analysis, make sure that everything you need is at least flagged and broadly explained in the member speech, even if it's badly done. Again, the whip is allowed to fill in gaps, sure, but this only flies if the judges believe that the argument was at least present in the member speech. Let's now look at what constitutes an extension. First up, we have analysis extensions. In this type of extension, you fill in the missing gaps of your top half's argument. Note that this is not just adding additional reasons for why their argument is true. You need to prove that your reasons are better, or more important, or necessary for their argument to work. If you just add other reasons that are equally as persuasive, then the judges will acknowledge that it's new material, but won't really have a reason to let you win because you also had like 30 extra minutes to come up with this stuff. The burden is on you to explain why your analysis is better than your openings and wins the point for your side. Even if they only have one reason for why their argument is true and you have dozens, your dozens of reasons could still be less persuasive than that one reason your opening gave. This type of extension fundamentally relies on you increasing the quality of the argument significantly. For the second type of extension, we have new content, which should be pretty self-explanatory. This type of extension refers to material that has not been brought up by your top half and is therefore inherently an extension as it is new to the debate. You still want to explain why this is more persuasive for your side than your opening, but you have less of a burden to have a better quality of argument. It's enough for the impact you prove to be greater than theirs in some capacity, which is easier to weigh. Finally, the third type of extensions is rebuttal extensions, which are new pieces of destructive material which were not present in your opening that disprove the logic of the other side. My partner Grace has made a handy spreadsheet to identify the different extensions, which we uploaded for you in the same place you find our cheat sheets. Feel free to download this if you want to use it as a reminder in round for your extension options. So, when do you use which type of extension? Analysis extensions come in when you think that the debate-winning argument is the one your opening used, but that they made significant leaps of logic that you can fill in. Either they're missing critical analysis on likelihood, or the impact for the argument to be persuasive, or they're just asserting stuff generally, and therefore the argument is not yet true. However, I must reiterate that the burden is on you to actively explain what is new and why it wins the argument in a way that opening doesn't yet. Obviously, if you don't think this argument is debate-winning, don't bother trying to analysis extend or even defend the opening team's case. It is not on you to explain why your opening wins. Let them fight their own battles. Ideally, you always have new content in your extension to safeguard against judges who only credit new material. This is what I call the dumbest judge on the panel defense. Dumb judges don't understand what analysis extensions are, so they discredit these out of hand due to their own incompetence. To make sure these stupid judges don't auto-fourth you, have something in your case that is entirely new, and ideally simple enough that literally anyone could understand. This is also why you want to throw in at least one new argument quickly, even if you're already analysis extending. Rebuttal extensions are very helpful when you've got SWOT. Your top half took everything you could have possibly thought of, leaving no links unproven whatsoever. It is unlikely that this comes up regularly, but I also know that sometimes motions are bad for back half. In those cases, you want to aim for a second. Defeat everything on the other side of the debate to cleanly take a second, or at the very least a third, rather than a fourth, in that debate. If you think that a team on the other side actually beat your opening, your rebuttal to that team can also potentially get you the first, because you beat the team that beat your opening. For the last bit of this episode, I want to highlight the key advantages and disadvantages of speaking last, which I think are worth considering to really understand the position and its strategic considerations. Let's start off with the advantages. First, obviously there are fewer people who can respond to you, because you speak later, making it less likely that you'll face scrutiny from other teams for missed analytical links. Second, you have all the time in the world. In addition to the 15 minutes of prep time, and however long it takes the chair to note down speaking order and everything, you will usually have at least 30 minutes of extra time to come up with stuff if you're CG. This is a lot of time to generate content. Third, you literally know what everyone else is doing. Even member of government already knows at least what 3/4 of the teams in the room did, and at the latest GovWhip knows what's up with CO. That makes it much easier to respond to everything and weigh it all up without needing to rely on guesswork and hoping that your predictions are correct and you missed no strong cases that could be run in the debate. Now, for the disadvantages. First, you have to answer everyone. Unlike the teams in top half, who can't really respond to your analysis, you have the burden to respond to them. Assuming everyone's arguments are persuasive, BP is adjudicated primarily on the metric of engagement, because if two arguments are equally persuasive, the only way to judge which wins is by assessing who engages better with the contentions from the other side. This, by the way, is the reason the Rain and Lamb are such a powerful tool, because they clarify your engagement with the other side to the judges. Winning through engagement means that you need to explain why you beat the other teams that have already spoken, as they did not have the same opportunity to engage with you. Remember, a judge won't rebut other teams and will usually be too lazy to identify the comparative for you. You need to either show you matter more than the other teams or that they're wrong. Second, you are kind of dependent on what your opening does, as they may steal the material you want to run or model the debate in a way that screws you over. You need to pay close attention to also not contradict them unless you want your material discounted by the judges. Finally, you might feel like there's just too much stuff going on in the debate for you to keep track of. This is normal in the beginning, and I promise you'll adjust to this over time, but just remember what I told you in episode 3. You don't need to respond to every claim teams make, just the ones you think matter. Let's now just do a quick checklist to make sure you caught everything. Today, we went over the back half of the debate, discussing both member and the whip speeches. We learned the different types of extensions, as well as when you should use which type, and discussed some of the strategic considerations regarding back half in general. Alright guys, that is all for now. I hope you learned something, and if you have any questions, put them in the comments below or write to us on Twitter at SpeakEasyDebate. If you liked this episode, please share it with your friends or other debaters you know who might be interested in this series. As always, you can find the cheat sheet for this week on our website, speakeasydebating.wordpress.com. For now, have a nice week, and I'll see you next time.